Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Terza, and I'm the Director of Development with the MSA Coalition. Today's clinical trial Roundup is a collaboration between the MSA Coalition and our partners, Alterity Therapeutics, Theravance Biopharma, and Takeda Pharmaceuticals. We're grateful for the support we've received from our corporate partners and for the opportunity to connect you with their work. Today's program will consist of 2 videos provided by Alterity and Theravance, followed by a live Q&A with representatives from both organizations and moderated by Dr. Daniel Claassen. If you haven't submitted a question via the registration path, I encourage you to use the Q&A function on Zoom throughout the program to ask any questions you may have. After today's program, please note there will be a frequently asked questions document sent in the program thank you note, sponsored by our corporate partner, Takeda, which details the need to knows for your perusal and will be available online for download as well. Before we move forward, I want to state that this educational session is not intended for the purpose of providing medical advice. All information, content, and material is for informational purposes only and are not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, and/or medical treatment of a qualified physician or healthcare provider. The information supplied through webinars on our webpage or by any representative or agent of the MSA Coalition, whether by telephone, email, letter, or any other form of communication, is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical, legal, or other professional advice. With that out of the way, thank you again for your attendance today and for your support of the MSA Coalition. I'm now excited to introduce the video portion of our program.
Hi, my name is David Stamler. I'm the CEO in developing drugs for neurologic conditions. I'm excited. I'll be focusing on telling you about our lead drug candidate called ATH434, which we're developing for treating Parkinsonian disorders, including multiple system atrophy, or MSA for short. Alterity is a global company with offices in San Francisco, California, and Melbourne, Australia. Our name Alterity means the state of being different, and our mission is reflected in our name. We are dedicated to changing the state of people living with neurodegenerative conditions, changing their state from disease to health. We have a small but very experienced team, and I'm proud of the fact that we've been several of our team members have developed and had approval at the FDA for 2 indications for treating neurologic conditions. We recognize the impact that MSA can have, and we are dedicated to developing new treatments that can slow down or disrupt the disease process and improve quality of life. ATH434 is an oral drug. It's a tablet that's taken twice a day, and it's really designed to slow down the disease progression. And it does this in a novel way by preventing the misfolding and clumping of an important protein that's present in every neuron. And the way we preserve this protein and prevent it from clumping is we bind and we redistribute iron that's increased in areas where the cells are injured. So we take the iron out of the cells, we preserve that protein, allow it to function, and then we take that iron and we put it back into circulation. So we don't want to strip the iron and take it out of the body. We just want to redistribute it for good purposes. ATH434 was discovered by Alterity chemists. Since its discovery, we've been partnering with academic scientists in the United States, Europe, and Australia. And we've been doing this to evaluate the drug in models of MSA. And it was based on very promising results from these studies that we then proceeded to do animal testing to demonstrate that it was safe to administer the drug to humans. And this is something that's required by the FDA. Since completing those animal studies, we've done phase 1 studies in healthy volunteers. We're really happy to see the safety results from the phase 1 trial, where all adverse events were mild to moderate in severity. No one had a serious adverse event, and no one had an adverse event that led them to discontinue treatment. And in fact, the most common adverse event in the clinical trial was a headache. So really, we thought we were very happy with the safety results coming out of the study. In addition to understanding how 434 behaves in healthy volunteers, we thought it was really important to understand the disease in patients with early stage MSA. This has not been well studied, and we thought it was really important to do this before conducting our phase 2 study. So what we decided to do about 2.5 years ago was to do this natural history study with our academic partners at Vanderbilt. Now, a natural history study is basically a clinical trial with no experimental therapy, and our goal is to really understand the disease process over the length of time where we observe the individuals. And this helps us really prepare well for phase 2. It helps us select the right patients, and it helps us choose the endpoints that we want to use to evaluate the impact of our drug.
An Australian-developed drug that targets the buildup of iron in the brain is being trialled on patients with a progressive brain disorder.
Researchers are trialling an oral drug called ATH434, which binds and redistributes the iron to prevent clumps of a protein called alpha-synuclein, implicated in both MSA and Parkinson's disease. Sydney's St Vincent's Hospital is currently recruiting patients with multiple system atrophy.
I try and live each day to my best ability. I do think if this drug is successful, it's going to be marvellous.
With the phase 1 and natural history studies behind us, we're ready for phase 2. The key objectives of the phase 2 study are to evaluate the safety and efficacy of 434 in individuals with early MSA. Treatment will be with one of 2 active dose groups of 434 or placebo, and will be 12 months in duration. We're aiming to recruit 60 individuals with early stage MSA. The ideal candidate is someone with recent onset of motor symptoms who is still ambulatory and does not require a walker. So if phase 2 is successful, this will help us design and plan the definitive trial. The definitive phase 3 trials are necessary to support approval at the FDA. We're fortunate to have already started enrolling into the phase 2 trial. I'm often asked, why should I participate in a clinical trial? And I think there are several important reasons. Firstly, we know there's no drugs approved for treating the underlying pathology of MSA, and it's only by doing these trials that we can find these new therapies. Next, you can make a difference. While scientists and doctors are important in the drug development process, as a participant, you're a vital component of this. So some people join clinical trials because they have the opportunity to receive an experimental medication which may offer them some benefit, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But it's important to keep in mind that we need to do these clinical trials to bring new medicines to the broader MSA community and for future generations. We know that participating in clinical trials requires a commitment. The protocols are detailed and determine who can and can't participate. Not everyone with MSA will be able to participate in the clinical trial. We also know that there are extra doctor visits, extra procedures. We know that you'll get poked and prodded a bit more than you would ordinarily. But it's important to understand that we're doing this so that we can collect the most important data to determine what interactions they have with their physicians who they see over the course of the trial. So it's important to keep all these things in mind when making a decision. Thank you for spending time with us today to listen to our story. If you or a family member are affected by MSA, please know that we at Alterity are dedicated to trying to make a difference. And if you're considering participating in a clinical trial, please talk to your doctor. They can help determine whether or not you may qualify to participate in our phase 2 study. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rick Winningham, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Theravance Biopharma. It's my pleasure to present the Cypress trial, a new clinical trial that our company is initiating that will study an investigational drug known as ampreloxetine for the treatment of neurogenic orthostatic hypotension in participants with multiple systems atrophy. I've been fortunate to be involved with several successful drug development programs over my career. This program is different to me. My father died due to complications of multiple systems atrophy. The loss of balance, I've seen all these up front and personal. So to have a chance to be successful with the development of this medicine, to have a chance to contribute something of benefit to patients with MSA, to their caregivers and family members, it's very, very important to me. Let's turn to slide 2. The Cypress trial is a new global clinical trial that Theravance is currently initiating for participants with MSA. The phase 3 trial will last for 20 weeks and test whether our drug, ampreloxetine, exhibits benefit for patients that have neurogenic orthostatic hypotension and MSA. Participants that complete the 20-week portion of the study will then be offered entrance into a long-term extension in which all participants will receive ampreloxetine for 2 additional years. We're excited to start this particular study, and I'll tell you more about it during the presentation today. On slide 3, we show ampreloxetine as an inhibitor of the reuptake of a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine in the nervous system. We're studying ampreloxetine in a phase 3 trial, which is the final stage of drug development prior to submitting the drug to FDA for approval. The administration of ampreloxetine is convenient and is administered orally as a once-a-day tablet, a single once-a-day tablet. Importantly, ampreloxetine has already been studied in over 800 clinical trial participants to date in various disorders, including multiple systems atrophy. So how does ampreloxetine work? And we'll show you that on slide 4. The top half of the slide depicts the situation in people that have untreated neurogenic orthostatic hypotension and MSA. Under these conditions, there is insufficient norepinephrine released when a patient stands up. Therefore, upon standing, the blood pressure will fall because the blood vessels do not constrict as they would following the release of normal amounts of norepinephrine. Often, this drop in blood pressure will result in symptoms of neurogenic orthostatic hypotension, including dizziness and lightheadedness, as well as other symptoms such as vision impairment, weakness, fatigue, trouble concentrating, and head and neck discomfort or coat hanger pain. Ampreloxetine blocks the norepinephrine transporter and therefore increases the levels of norepinephrine present when you sit or stand up. Results in a relative increase in blood pressure. This increase in blood pressure can also increase blood flow in the brain, which helps reduce the symptoms of neurogenic orthostatic hypotension, such as dizziness and lightheadedness. Now, turning to slide 5, ampreloxetine was studied in a prior clinical trial, study 170. And demonstrated a symptomatic benefit in MSA patients treated with ampreloxetine when compared to placebo. These benefits were observed across a constellation of symptoms of NOH, again, that included dizziness, vision impairment, weakness, fatigue, trouble concentrating, and head and neck discomfort. Were clinically significant, meaningful, and the effect was maintained over the length of the 22-week study. In addition to the favorable impact on symptom scores, there was also an improvement in daily activities that require walking and standing for a short period of time. Theravance Biopharma is now interested in confirming these benefits in participants with MSA in a larger registrational trial. Ampreloxetine was generally well tolerated in the previous trial, with most commonly reported adverse events being headache or urinary tract infection. On slide 6, we'll talk about and look at the design of the Cypress study. The phase 3 Cypress trial has been designed to test the durability of effect of ampreloxetine over 20 weeks in participants with MSA and neurogenic orthostatic hypotension. All participants will receive ampreloxetine for 12 weeks during an open label period, followed by randomization to either placebo or ampreloxetine randomized withdrawal period for an additional 8 weeks. The composite assessment of symptoms of neurogenic orthostatic hypotension, which again includes dizziness, vision impairment, weakness, fatigue, trouble concentrating, and head and neck discomfort, will form the basis of the primary evaluation results for this study. All participants that complete the initial 20 weeks of the trial will be invited to continue participating in a long-term extension and receive ampreloxetine in an open label fashion for up to an additional 2 years. So what about eligibility? Well, slide 7 says you may be eligible to participate in the Cypress trial if you meet several key criteria. 1, you've been diagnosed with multiple systems atrophy. 2, you have neurogenic orthostatic hypotension as demonstrated by a reduction in blood pressure upon standing. And 3, you have symptoms of dizziness associated with your orthostatic hypotension. The Cypress trial has been designed to help minimize some of the challenges encountered during clinical trial participation. For example, to alleviate the burden of travel, your participation visits may be conducted in either a clinic or hospital setting or at your home. Now, you may be wondering how you can participate in the Cypress trial. We're currently opening study centers across the United States and worldwide. For information regarding trial participation, including location of study centers, please email us at cypress@theravance.com or give us a phone call at 1-650-808-3737, or visit us on our study site, www.cypressstudy.com. Theravance Biopharma is committed to improving the lives of MSA patients with symptomatic NOH. Please consider joining us as we try and take another step towards the goal of managing symptoms of neurogenic orthostatic hypotension in patients with MSA. Thank you for your interest in this important clinical program. We very much look forward to working through the program and bringing to you the results in the relatively near future. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching the video portion of the program. We are just getting set up with our panelists who should join us shortly. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Claassen, who can start providing some introductions.
Thank you. Well, nice to be with you again. This is my second webinar this week, so I feel like I'm good with Zoom, and it's good to go over these incredible clinical trial opportunities with our colleagues from Theravance, Alterity, and I believe Takeda. And I think, so let me tell you about myself if you don't know me, and then I'll get each panelist to introduce themselves, and then we'll go into the questions. So I'm a neurologist at Nashville, Tennessee, and I take care of patients with MSA. We're part of a larger interdisciplinary team with specialties that range from autonomics to urology to sleep to physiology or physical therapy. And it's one of my joys in life to look after MSA patients, but also to be involved in a small way in trying to find treatments that could help patients who suffer from this devastating disease. So I am going to see if our panelists can introduce themselves. And I know that I have Dr. Vickery in front of me. So perhaps, Ross, you could introduce yourself to us.
Sure, and it's great to see you, Dan. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
My name's Ross Vickery. I'm in clinical development at Theravance, and it's a place that I've worked at for better part of 2 decades, actually. And I've been fortunate enough to be working with ampreloxetine for the last 5 or 6 years, taking it through early stage phase 2 studies, which we conducted with the help of Vanderbilt, actually, and in a study over the last couple of years where we were looking at a broader population. What we're really excited about are the results we have in the MSA population and the participants that we had in the earlier studies. We're excited for the study. We're excited to see the contribution we can make to everybody who's on the call, and hope that you have the opportunity to join us in our mission forward.
Thank you. Dr. Bourdet, I think I've said that right, or Bourdet, one of the two.
Yeah, Bourdet.
Bourdet. Okay. You want to introduce us to you and where you are with Theravance? Yeah.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is David Bourdet. I head the Research and Development Sciences group at Theravance. I've been with the company now 14 years, and really over the last 13 of those years, I've been working on this particular program in some capacity or another. Really ever since the time that we discovered ampreloxetine in our laboratories here in South San Francisco. I'm currently the program team leader for this particular project, and we're certainly looking forward to kicking off this important clinical trial, which will be the final trial before hopefully we get positive results and are able to bring this particular treatment forward for patients that have multiple system atrophy. So pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And now we also have Dr. Stamler from Alterity, who's with us. Dr. Stamler, do you mind introducing yourself? You gave us a little introduction to your video, but telling us a little bit about where you are with Alterity and just a little bit, maybe just a short bio in case someone missed the beginning of your video.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the meeting today. Yeah, my background is I'm a physician, and I've been developing drugs for neurologic diseases for a very long time. And we have been advancing this oral drug for treating the underlying pathology of MSA for the last several years. So we're embarking on this new phase 2 trial, and really excited to get it running and have as many people join as we can.
Well, great. So we've had a number of questions come in already, and I'm just going to start by perhaps asking them, and I'll direct them to one of you, and then if another one of you wants to respond, then that'd be great. I think one issue that comes up a lot, and I'll start this with Dr. Stamler here, but one issue that a lot of our patients are asking us about is, how do I know which trial is right for us? So several questions have come in about, for instance, one person says that they were interested in the trial, but they were told they were not eligible. And another person said they tried to get in, but were told that they weren't the right candidate. So how if you're a patient, how can you know if a trial's right for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we and other companies, we always post on clinicaltrials.gov the general criteria that you need to meet to join a protocol, and those are really important because we often try to to carefully define the patient population that we think is most suitable to benefit from the drug. So I think that's a good starting point, but it's not the whole story. And obviously we know you're not medical professionals, and that's where it's really important to talk to your doctor, to talk to your neurologist, and have them, kind of look at what those criteria are to see if they think you might qualify. And then ultimately, I think you have to look at what's involved in the trial. As I mentioned in the video, there's these trials can involve, a fair amount of work and effort, and you have to see whether or not you can actually, meet the expectations of the trial, because we want everyone who joins to finish. We want everyone who joins to have a good experience, and some trials may be more demanding than others. So I think it's really a dialogue between you and your physician. Then ultimately, if you think you may participate or want to participate, then you would need to visit a participating study center. So that's my perspective.
Thanks. And kind of following on that, Dr. Bourdet or Dr. Vickery, maybe you could tell us, some of our patient questions come about where that, something like one of our patients says here they're located in Brazil. Another question comes in from a participant who lives in Canada. How do folks that live outside the US get involved in these trials? And is it possible that wherever you live, there's a trial, or how do they figure that out?
Yeah, so I can touch on that, Dr. Claassen. So for example, for our particular trial, we are currently opening up centers in the United States, but we are planning to open up centers worldwide for this particular trial. And as the year progresses, we will be opening up trial centers in those countries that you mentioned, for example, Canada, and in South America, including Brazil. If patients have questions on their location and whether that particular location may be participating in our trial, please reach out to us by email at the email that was listed in the presentation. That is cyprus@theravance.com. And we can connect you with a participating center.
Yeah, and I think I would add that Canada is a big place, right? And we don't have sites all over Canada, but we do have sites in Canada. And you may have heard Rick Winningham in the earlier presentation mention that we have a study design that would allow you to essentially conduct and participate in the study from home. So it doesn't mean you have to live in the city where the study is being offered. It does open up some opportunities, I think, depending on where you live. So again, looking at clinical trials can give you an idea of how far that might be away, but certainly it extends, I think, the opportunity to participate.
That's great, and congratulations on taking a forward-looking way to design trials that are siteless. That's really great work. So this question I'm going to open this one to all three of you, and because it's kind of a tough one, but I'll start with Dr. Stambler to see if you want to give a shot at this one. But we get a lot of questions about this term, compassionate use or expanded access. There seems to be a lot of confusion about what that means for a participant. And I was wondering if you could help us understand, kind of from a company level, like how should a patient think about expanded access or right to try? Does every company have that option, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it does cause a lot of confusion, Dr. Claassen. I would say that every company has a different approach towards that, and it tends to be based on a variety of factors. Often the stage of the drug. Is there any evidence that the drug provides a benefit? And then it's it is a complex process to set up a study, and so smaller studies tend to have fewer resources to be able to do that. It's, as a physician, it really, it's difficult because we know we want to offer the drug to as many people as possible, but we have to kind of work within our means and do what we can to advance the drug in the best possible way so that we can, take it to the next stage, and then ultimately, with success, support the approval. So those terms are expanded access, right to try, are different approaches towards allowing participants with MSA to get access to those drugs outside of a clinical trial, and that's something that each company tries to have a policy on. We unfortunately at Alterity, we're unable to do that at this time, but we are always looking to expand our access or to be able to offer something like that in the future.
Yeah, that's really insightful. From Theravance folks, any comments on that?
It is a complicated question, and we are further along in the development process, so we do have an expanded access program for patients who are unable to reach the clinical trial sites or to participate. And as I said, patients are able to participate remotely, and we welcome that. But I think that part of if you remember the study design that Mr. Winningham presented earlier, we do have a long-term follow-on to the study that lasts 2 years. So it will, in essence, for participants, provide that extended access. As far as the right to try, this has always been a confusing thing as well to me. But I think that, again, it's set up around people who don't have access to the study. And what we're trying to do is address that by having that sort of remote home access for participants. And Dave, I think you might want to add to that.
Yeah, I think certainly, Ross. We do believe that participation in the study is the best way for patients to access ampreloxetine. However, we do realize that not everyone can access it through a trial or may not be eligible. So our company is reviewing any requests for compassionate use or expanded access on an individual basis, and we will review those.
Thanks for that. We get a lot of questions about that, and so that's really helpful in understanding kind of the thoughts process to get that. So I'm going to ask. We got a lot of smart people on this chat because they're asking very complicated questions. So I don't even know how to answer them. So I'm going to kind of lump them here by the medication itself. So one of the questions I have is directed about the ATH434 molecule, and I assume one of you on this panel might be able to answer this one. But one of the questions is, how does the decision about starting a patient early in disease versus later disease, how's that decision made? And do you think this compound will be only for early stage patients, or is it possible that it could also be used for later stage patients?
Yeah, it is a really good question, and I think it gets at the heart of the challenges of drug development. We believe that should ATH434 work, it should offer benefit to all patients. all individuals with MSA. But when you do your first clinical trial, and we are just embarking on our first clinical trial in individuals with MSA, it's really important that you choose individuals that have the stage of disease where you think you can actually show evidence of benefit and evidence of efficacy. And if you were able to see the video, we are targeting some of the underlying pathology of MSA by binding iron in the brain. As MSA progresses, you may get more iron accumulation and you may get more damage in the areas of the brain. And we think that if individuals are too far along in their disease process, that it may be difficult to show that they benefit from therapy in the context of a clinical trial. So we made the difficult decision based on our understanding of the pathology of the disease and where we thought we could demonstrate benefit to target earlier individuals with earlier stage disease. Now, it doesn't mean that subsequently we won't expand to individuals with later stage disease. It just means that initially you kind of have to take your best shot and identify the group that you think are the best candidates. So that's what we did. And if you look at the information on the website, we are on clinicaltrials.gov. We're aiming to enroll individuals who are still ambulatory and have had motor symptoms, difficulty walking, etc., for Parkinson's-like symptoms for less than 4 years. So it's not just when symptoms start, but it is still relatively early when we think we can show a benefit. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Yeah, I guess what I sense for some of my patients is that they feel left out if they don't, meet criteria for us. And so, we have to often talk to them about it's a trial, not a treatment. Sometimes Hollywood dramatizes things where, you get access to a trial and all of a sudden everything gets better. But, that's one of the things as a clinician that I deal with. So maybe I can add that to this side of the story.
Yeah.
Now, interesting question here about the Theravance compound. So one person writes, there are other compounds or therapies that can increase norepinephrine like stimulants. How does your compound compare to those? So I guess that they're referring to maybe atomoxetine or something along those lines. And that's again, I got some smart people on this line, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about that question.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so. There are other medications that can enhance norepinephrine levels, including atomoxetine is one of them. Ampreloxetine does differ in a couple different ways. For one, it is a kind of longer acting medicine in that it stays in your bloodstream for longer, and really is a once daily a tablet, and has been designed that way to offer some convenience. We're also now studying it specifically in multiple system atrophy. The other agents, such as atomoxetine, have been approved for uses such as ADHD and some other indications. Whereas we're looking to study this directly in patients with multiple system atrophy to see if ampreloxetine will provide benefit. Ross, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. I mean, if I could just really quickly, Dan, and I think this is sort of an interesting perspective of the drug. There are other drugs besides atomoxetine and other classes of drugs, like Nothera and midodrine, and I'm sure everybody on this call is very familiar with those particular agents. And what they do is they increase levels of norepinephrine, but they do so directly. So they, stimulate, or at least stimulate the neurovasculature directly. So they directly constrict blood vessels at the vessel itself. So they raise blood pressure, and they do it, quite well, certainly. But the blood pressure remains raised throughout the duration of the action of the drug. Ampreloxetine is a bit different. When people stand up or change posture, they release norepinephrine. So if they're not standing or they're not, moving around or changing posture, ampreloxetine really isn't doing very much because there's no epinephrine to stop the uptake of. When people stand up, they release norepinephrine. That's when the inhibition of uptake happens. That's when then the vasoconstriction would happen. That's when the reduction in that sort of loss of blood flow to the brain happens. So it's sort of a unique mechanism from what's out there. And what we've also demonstrated is that the duration of action is longer than those other drugs that I just mentioned. So, Nothera has only been approved for use really for a week, and shown there's been evidence that it's only lasts a week in terms of effectiveness. What we're hoping to show is that we have a durable effect.
Oh, thank you for that explanation. So we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I get to ask one more question to each of you. Before I do that, I want to thank you very much for coming on. We got through pretty much all the questions. The one question we didn't get to was about people switching from one trial to another. And I think I'll just go on record and say, we really love patients to commit to a trial, but if that question ever comes up, discuss it with the clinician that you're being seen with, and talk about the implications of that decisions, because that is a big decision. For clinical trials to work, we really have to have patients stay throughout the course of the trial. But with that being said, I'll ask one more question to each of you, and that is, you're working with MSA patients. What's one kind of reflection you have of working with MSA patients that maybe you have come to realize more recently or over the course of working with this disease that you can encourage us about? I'll start with Dr. Stamler.
Yeah, so I've only been studying MSA for about 5 years. I've learned a lot about the illness from clinicians like Dr. Claassen and others. I'm struck by the diversity of symptoms and problems that individuals with MSA experience, and I understand that that's it can be devastating. I really do. I think most of my experience in neurology up until now has been associated with the movement disorder, which can be debilitating. But when you add on top of that the difficulty maintaining blood pressure, problems with bowel or bladder function, sweating, and the fact that all these things are going on at the same time, I think I really feel for the challenges that you experience, and I guess to offer some hope and in that context, part of what we're trying to do is really by addressing the underlying pathology, we think we can affect all those areas. Obviously, I don't want to give any false hope. I know I've talked to Dr. Claassen about this. We are doing everything we can. I think we know that clinical trials are challenging, and we need to do them. We don't know if our therapies are going to work. No one knows that. But we are partners with you, and we're going to do everything we can to advance therapies that hopefully can address all these underlying symptoms. That's what I've learned along the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've also been in this area for about 5 years, and one of the things that I've been most struck by, and I've been in clinical development and on other therapeutic areas, and I've never met a stronger group of patients than the MSA population. I mean, they're so full of compassion. Everyone I've met wants to participate. They participate with a look forward to individuals who are coming next down this path, and it's incredibly moving. And I think that at Theravance we've been very proud to be part of this and to hopefully provide something that does give hope. And it really that keeps us going, right? This is a hard journey for everybody to provide hope, to provide something, to think to think we can do it, but then to be able to work with this group of people has just been very special.
Yeah, I would just echo those comments, Ross. And for me personally, just having conversations with our CEO, Rick Winningham, who you heard earlier during his presentation, has been directly impacted by MSA. His father passed away from MSA, and just to hear his personal stories and the impact that the disease has on family members, caregivers, everyone that is involved in the care of patients with MSA is really an important driver for what we're doing. I think what we're all doing, all companies, Alterity, Takeda, Theravance, in bringing forward new treatments for patients that have MSA. So certainly realize the passion of the patients, and just want to reiterate our desire to bring new therapies and new treatments for everyone.
Well, I really thank you, gentlemen, for your time. It's been a real joy for me to kind of get updated on your studies and get to see you again when I haven't seen you in a while. And I want to thank the MSA Coalition for hosting this. And there's going to be more of this to come. But until that time, we appreciate your attendance. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to let us at the MSA Coalition know those questions, and we'll work our hardest to get those answers for you. Thank you for coming, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.